I got a call from my girlfriend, only to realize she exists in a completely different timeline in an alternate reality universe. So yesterday around 5 p.m., I was chilling in my room, playing the new OG Fortnite map with my friends on Discord. We were in the middle of a chaotic match. Then out of nowhere, I get a call with a no-caller ID. I usually ignore stuff like that, but I had recently applied for a job and was expecting a call back from an unknown number. So I stared at it for a second, debating whether to answer it or not. I chose to let it ring out. A minute later, it rings again, same no-caller ID. This time, I answer. I'm like, hello. But the Fortnite sounds in the background are so loud I can barely hear anything, so I pause my game. It was a girl who eerily sounded like my girlfriend. Not just similar, like, almost exactly like her. The voice, the attitude, the way she said certain words. But she sounded kinda annoyed, like I should have known it was her right away. I asked who it was, just to be sure it was her. It threw me off completely. Then she asked to come over. But instead of just saying she'd get a ride, she brought up something oddly specific, a $5 discount I had on Lyft and how we usually use my account for both Lyft and Uber. That's super niche info. Stuff only she or someone super close would know. I started buying the Lyft for her, but then she suddenly said, actually, just send me the money and I'll do it myself. That's when alarm bells started ringing. Why the change? Why not just let me book it? And earlier that same day, she straight up told me she didn't want to hang out tonight. Now she suddenly wants to come over and is super specific about ride-share apps? It felt off. Way too coincidental. And for someone to fake that much personal info, they'd have to be really close or have been stalking me. But even then, how do you fake someone's voice that well? That's when it hit me, this could be an AI voice clone. There's tech out there now that can copy someone's voice if they have enough audio samples. It creeped me out. I cancelled the ride. I called my actual girlfriend right after. She was confused as hell. Said she never called me. Wasn't even near her phone. She hadn't asked for a ride, didn't know about the call, and definitely hadn't planned to come over. So now I'm sitting here with this lingering feeling that I just talked to, what? An AI scammer? Someone pretending to be her? Or, and this is where it gets even stranger, a version of her from a different reality? I know it sounds out there, but think about it. What if there are alternate versions of us, living slightly different lives, and every once in a while, the signal crosses over? Like some kind of dimensional overlap. Or maybe the energy we put out really does start creating the reality around us. Maybe there are higher versions of ourselves out there, already living the lives we're manifesting. I don't know. All I know is, that call felt too real. Too accurate. And it left me questioning what's possible. Has anything like this ever happened to you? Because I'm still trying to figure it out. Glitch 2. I spent 2 hours driving in an empty roundabout not being able to get out. This happened in Bucharest in the mid-2000s and it's my go-to weird glitch in the Matrix story that I cannot explain. It's 11 p.m. on a Friday, I'm driving home and I get a call from my best friend. It's someone else on the line telling me my friend is extremely drunk acting like an idiot in a bar and if it's possible to come and get him as people are calling the cops and he doesn't want to leave. I go to the old town center. I see my buddy with 3 of his university buddies outside of the bar and they're completely wasted. There's a police car parked in front of me, but it's traffic police, so the cops are just watching me collect these messes and struggle to get them in the car. One of them throws up on the sidewalk. I'm stressed as earlier that day I had already gotten a ticket. I did a small mistake in the Victory roundabout during rush hour. I'm being specific as this place will come up later. And the cop decided to make an example out of me and really scared me a bit. So I managed to get them in the car and the moment I start the car the cops block me and they check me for alcohol. They make me blow in the tester. They check my papers and stuff and one of the cops is really trying to give me a ticket for anything. He's now saying I'm not supposed to be on this specific road or something like that. It's bullshit. He just wants to burn me. But the other cop comes and tells him to let me go because I had already gotten a traffic ticket that day and apparently they couldn't give me 2 tickets for minor traffic violations in 24 hours, which is a rule I've never heard of before or since then. This was mildly weird, but not glitch in the Matrix stuff. Anyway, I drive them to the opposite part of town where they lived in the student complex. No more incidents. It's now about 12:15 a.m. and I'm driving home. I get to Piazza Victorii, which is the absolute central point of the city. It's a huge square that's a roundabout from which every main boulevard of the city starts. So each exit from this square roundabout is a huge 6-lane boulevard, and each boulevard takes you to a different neighborhood, and each boulevard is very unique looking and it's very well marked. So it's almost impossible for someone who lives in this city to take the wrong exit in this place. It's also 12:30 a.m. by now and it's completely empty, so zero traffic or anything that could distract me to take the wrong exit. I enter the roundabout, I see my exit and I take it like I've previously done it hundreds of times. I get on the boulevard, but I immediately know this is not my boulevard. It's a completely different one that takes me in a very wrong direction. The only option I have is to turn around to the square. I say, okay, that's weird, but okay, I've had a very long day, was in university and I also worked, the 2 police encounters, both very stressful, almost 2 tickets, the whole commotion with the drunk friends. I turn around, go back in the roundabout, drive until my exit again, take my exit and I'm on the other boulevard again, same thing as first time. I say, okay, I'm a complete dumbass for doing this, I need to focus now. Turn around, get into the roundabout, drive until my exit, take my exit, I'm focused now on all the details. But nope, I'm on the other boulevard again. Now I start to get annoyed at myself, I start screaming in the car out of frustration. I turn around, get into the roundabout, drive slowly, I get to my exit slowly. I take my exit slowly and focused and sharp and clear, and I'm on the other boulevard again. This is freaking me out by now, as you can imagine. 2 hours I spent there doing the same thing and I haven't seen one person or one car in that time, which is another strange thing from that night. I don't believe there's ever been 2 hours in that place without a car passing. This is literally the epicenter of traffic in a city with 2+ million people. I was having a breakdown, I was almost crying from anger at the end, screaming my lungs out every time it happened, and then I finally got my exit and I found myself on my street, and in 5 minutes I was home and the clock said 2:40 a.m. I simply cannot explain it. I had a phone, but it was late and I was very angry and I really didn't know how to explain to someone what was happening. It would have sounded like I'm on drugs or I'm having a psychotic episode and I didn't want to make a bigger deal out of it. Plus it seemed like such a stupid problem to have, I just couldn't express it or explain it and I still can't. Thank you for reading. All the best. Glitch 3, a town that doesn't exist at all. I live in very rural southern Appalachia, and yesterday, I was going over to the next county to look at lawnmowers. It's an area I'm very familiar with, although I haven't been to the area in over a year. While on the way, I came upon a town that has never been there before. Now, there is a small community there, and it was by the same name, but this was a full-fledged small town. Had a couple red lights, a main street with probably 15 to 20 storefronts, everything. I was so taken aback I stopped in the middle of the road. After a few moments a car behind me honked the horn, so I pulled into a parallel spot and got out. Now the small towns in my area are all the same. Tiny, dingy, run down. Had a heyday in the 50s and 60s, but all have fallen into disrepair. Not this one. Everything was pristine and new looking. Swept sidewalks, shiny windows, and clean brick. The people I saw were dressed in modern clothes, and had the same appearance that most people in the area have, healthy, but whether beaten and aged beyond their years. The vehicles I saw were fairly modern, new to 20 years old, nothing out of the ordinary. I walked into the little restaurant, Cream of the Crop Cafe, and it looked like every other little restaurant in the area. Booths and tables, a bar top with a register and the kitchen behind it, some cheesy James Dean and Marilyn Monroe pictures on the walls. I walked up to the girl at the counter and asked her where I was. She seemed puzzled, because I could tell she knew I was local by my attire and my accent, but she said Minneapolis. I said, so this is Minneapolis, when did they build all this? Again she looked puzzled and said, I don't know, the 1800s sometime. I couldn't handle any more, so I just left. Got in my truck and went on to look at the lawnmower. On my way back through, about an hour later, there was Minneapolis, like it should be. A couple houses, and an old general store. No town, no red lights, no cafe, no sidewalks. Freaked me out something awful. I've never experienced such as this, as I'm pretty mundane and boring. It wasn't a hallucination, I don't think. Everything else was the same, wasn't a dream, so I don't know. Update 1. First off, let me preface by saying I have been through Minneapolis several times since the occurrence, and it's still the same, Nothing has been out of the ordinary. Now, on the update, I was in Walmart today, and I ran into the young lady who I spoke to at the non-existent restaurant, in the non-existent town. I passed her in an aisle, and we locked eyes. She had a look of vague recognition, while I simply froze. She continued on her way, but once I snapped out of my daze, I made it a point to be in almost every aisle she went down. It sounds kinda creepy and stalkerish, I know. Finally, after locking eyes with her for the third time, she asked, "Where do I know you from?" I told her I didn't know, but she looked familiar too, and asked if we went to school together. She informed me that she went to the neighboring high school, graduated 5 years after me, grew up in Minneapolis. We didn't have any mutual friends, didn't ever attend the same barn parties, nor did we know each other's spouses. She pressed on, saying something along the line of, "You are just so familiar, feel like we've met before." I couldn't hold it back, and I blurted out the story. Everything from Minneapolis being a full-fledged town, to the restaurant, to her working the counter, and her bewilderment at my questions. She gave an awkward laugh and said, "No, that's not it," and hurried away. I think I freaked her out but she knew there was some connection, but didn't know what it was. Just a little while ago, she added me as a friend on Facebook, but hasn't tried to contact me. I'm not gonna press the issue, but if she ends up asking questions, I guess I'll answer them. Update 2. After scrolling through my pics, I found one I took the day of the incident. No, unfortunately not of the town, but I realized I had on the exact same clothes yesterday as I did when the incident happened. I had on overalls, likely not the same pair, but it's what I wear on my days off. The same old ball cap, again, my day off, around the house cap, and the same orange Carolina Pushrods t-shirt. I don't know if this really has any meaning, as I wear these clothes fairly regularly, but it's odd that I had on the same t-shirt during both encounters.
Glitch 3. Me and my daughter witnessed something surreal and unexplainable today. For a few weeks before this, while out driving, I've observed pedestrians standing at the traffic lights who will reach into their pocket and look at their phone as they're walking across the road when the light goes green. Nothing significant or strange about this, just one of those mundane things you notice while going about your day. Today I was driving with my daughter and we stopped at a red light at a crossing and there was a man standing there. Nothing out of the ordinary, denim jacket, black cap, glasses, around 6 square feet. I thought I'd try to weird out my young daughter. She's 5, so I knew I was going to blow her damn mind, so I said, "See that man? When the walking man goes green and he starts to walk across, he'll reach into his pocket and pull out his phone and start looking at it. Watch and see." As he walks across, he reaches into his pocket but then immediately takes his hand out and looks and points right at me with his mouth open, smiling, like a gotcha stance. Of course my daughter found this absolutely hilarious and I sat there completely mind blown. I must have sat there in silence looking at him walk across for the next 10 seconds. I drove on and had a look at him as I drove past and he was smirking, laughing. I've been playing it through my head all day. The windows were up. The radio was on. I wasn't shouting. My voice was not even remotely raised. He must have been about 15 to 20 feet away from me. I can't figure out at all how he could have heard me. It's literally impossible. How did he know I was trying to predict he'd reach into his pocket for his phone? The only even remote possibility I can think of is that he has had the same observation as me and thought I might be thinking the same thing, so just went for it. But realistically, what are even the chances of this?
I think I drove past a wormhole or something. I got up and got ready for work, hopped in the car ready to start my 1.5-hour commute. I'm driving my normal route and about 35 minutes into my drive I miss my exit due to a weird traffic instance where I just couldn't get over in time. No big deal. I continue on and just let my GPS recalculate. I like using my GPS regardless of knowing the route because it gives good insights into traffic patterns and ETA. Things like that. It recalculates to the next exit, and even saved a couple minutes. I was like, oh nice, maybe I just found a secret shortcut to work. So at this point I blindly follow the GPS as I am unfamiliar with a lot of the route at this point, and I drive for another 20 to 25 minutes or so. This is when it gets weird. I come up on a road that seems familiar to me for some reason and I discount the feeling because of the off chance maybe I had been there before. I then turn onto the road and realize that I am on a road that connects to the road my house is on. And I've never gone this way because I've never had a reason to. I think, wow, this is weird, how did I get turned around like that? So at this point I know I'm going to be late, so I call my boss and let him know I made a mistake. I decide I might as well stop in my house to let the dogs out quick and go to the bathroom. This is the weirdest part. As I approach my house, I look in the driveway and my heart sinks. My car is in the driveway, same license plate and everything. That's when I look down at the steering wheel and realize I'm driving my wife's car. I pull in the driveway and walk in the house. My wife was confused to see me because she knew I left for work not long ago. I was surprised to see that she was awake because she works night shift at the hospital. I asked her if she by chance saw me take her keys out of her purse to drive her car that day. She reaches in her purse and pulls her keys out of her purse. I reach my hand in my pocket and pull out my keys. How was I driving her car with my keys? Our cars are very different, but the fobs are similar. I again discount it as a weird mix-up and hop back in my car to go to work this time. I update my boss and let him know the situation. I get on the road and this time I wanted to make sure that I didn't miss my exit. As I'm approaching the same exit I missed last time, I see emergency vehicles lining the road and the exit is closed. There was a car crash on the exit involving a semi-truck. The car that was in the accident was the same make and model as my car. I found this to be very spooky. Again I'm forced to drive a different route to work, and at this point I'm very flustered. I call my boss and let again just update him, and he says, no worries, you should still be able to make it in time for the meeting. I look at my clock and it's as if I was on time. How? I called my wife just to confirm I was home a while ago, and she said that I wasn't home but she couldn't find her keys anywhere. I was starting to freak out. I checked my phone's previous calls and texts to my boss and there was nothing. I never called or texted him. Do I need to go to the doctor? Update. My wife found her keys. They were in my work pants that I wore the day before. Update 2. Asked my boss for a mental health day because the experience has been very unsettling. I spoke with my boss about the experience I had and he said I have the day off to figure some stuff out. Yes, he is a very cool boss. This is what I found out. More questions than answers really. I tried to find any news regarding the accident I saw. I have been looking up the exit and interstate to see if I can pinpoint who was in the accident because it didn't look survivable. Nothing. I cannot find anything on the accident and it's been eating me up. I mapped out my route and traced the exit that I thought I took. The only plausible exit that I took doesn't seem to connect or turn around back to my home in any way. It does, however, provide an alternate route to work. I haven't been back to the exit where the accident happened. I want to investigate it to see if I can see any sign of wreckage, i.e. fluid stains on the road, bits of car with matching color, etc. Will update when I go back there. I have somewhat of an eidetic memory, I guess. Usually I can recall very specific information about an event, what someone is wearing, color of their coffee mug, etc. Things that other people usually just disregard as unimportant. That's why this part is really frustrating to me, because for the first time in my life I cannot remember any details about the interaction with my wife. My wife is my rock and she has been very supportive throughout this experience. I try to remember specific details about our interaction but cannot seem to pick out any specific details like I usually would. She works night shift as a NICU nurse and it was her day off, so her schedule is all over the place, and thought for sure she would be sleeping when I got home, but she was awake. The key fobs are a mystery as well, but for safe measure I went out in the driveway and ran a test to make sure that the car would not start if I had the wrong keys, because I've heard of such things being possible with certain cars, but no luck. It didn't start. I switched cars and tested vice versa and nothing. The only plausible explanation here is that I maybe grabbed her keys from her purse after getting home unexpectedly, and then just drove my car to work. But this doesn't explain her keys being in my work pants from the day before. She found them before I returned home. I appreciate everyone's support and ideas through this weird experience and will update if I connect any of the dots. So far I'm rationalizing it as some kind of false memory or perhaps a lucid daydream or some sort of paracosm of disassociation, which doesn't necessarily make me feel any better. To people that are saying the experience is fake, the thing is, it might be. But it felt really real to me and I'm just trying to be rational about it. Story 2. My wife and I saw our 5-year-old daughter but older. This happened a few months ago. In early January, my wife and I were in the kitchen, prepping lunch and chatting. Our 5-year-old daughter was in the living room, watching TV. No one else in the house. We live in a 2-bedroom apartment, and the layout of the house allows us to see a bit of the corridor and hallway outside the kitchen door. My wife was cutting up food, and I was sitting behind her. As we talked, she started to turn around to face me but stopped midway, staring at the kitchen door. She froze up completely, and I remember asking, "What is it?" She let out a loud gasp, and then I instinctively looked toward the door as well. I saw a brief glimpse of what seemed like a person turning the corner, towards the living room. It happened very fast, but I was sure I saw someone. I panicked. My immediate thought was, holy fuck, someone broke in, my daughter's alone in the living room. The only thing I thought of doing was grabbing a knife and yelled at my wife to call the police. I rushed into the corridor and into the living room. In the living room, there was nothing. My kid was just sitting on the couch, watching Bluey. She looked at me and asked, "What's up?" with a confused expression. Mind you, I had a knife in my hand and probably looked crazy. I tried to play it off and asked if she saw anyone come in the room. She hadn't and was clueless about what I was talking about. I searched the living room and the rest of the house. No sign of a break-in, windows closed, and we live on the 3rd floor. If someone had tried to escape that way, they would have fallen really bad. I checked everywhere, wardrobes, behind curtains, the front door. Nothing. No signs of entry, and the front door was totally closed, and we didn't hear anyone come in or anything of the sort. This all happened within maybe 10 minutes. I went back to the kitchen, where my wife was crying. She had frozen up and didn't call the cops. I calmed her down. She got scared bad and she couldn't even speak properly. When she calmed down, she explained to me what she saw. I personally only caught a very quick glimpse of the thing turning around the corner. However, my wife says she got a good look at it. She says she saw what looked like a tall woman, dressed in a floral dress and high heels, walking across the corridor. Neither of us heard any sound though. She said the woman stopped when she understood she was seen, looked at my wife in the eyes, and my wife swears the figure looked like our daughter, but older. This happened in the space of seconds, when she first froze up in shock. When my wife gasped, the woman hurried and turned the corner into the living room. I only saw this last part. If I hadn't caught a glimpse of it, I would ask my wife to go into therapy or something. But I know something was there. We never figured out what we saw, but it was definitely the strangest moment of my life, and I know it happened. Wanted to share here.